Hello everyone and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Ham and we're live in the snowy nation's capital of Washington, D.C. Today, President Donald Trump doubles down on his Gaza takeover plan. Meanwhile, White House efforts to end the war in Ukraine heat up. We'll bring you the latest on these and other stories from across the globe, but first, the headlines. Canada appoints a former senior police officer as its fentanyl czar. This as the latest move by Ottawa to assuage concerns by the Trump administration that the lethal drug is being smuggled into the United States. Taiwan detects more than 60 Chinese military aircraft around its territory as 2 American ships sail through the sensitive Taiwan Strait, angering Beijing. Russian authorities rescue all 139 fishermen trapped on a sheet of floating ice that drifted into the sea between Russia and Japan. Iran shuts schools and government offices in more than 20 provinces as it faces power and fuel shortages amid freezing temperatures. And Algeria, Nigeria, and Niger signed new agreements to boost the development of a vast natural gas pipeline toward Europe. The project is estimated to cost over $10 billion. We begin in the United States, where President Donald Trump met Jordan's King Abdullah at the White House on Tuesday. The commander-in-chief once again talked about his plan for the U.S. to take over the Gaza Strip, insisting that other countries in the Middle East should house displaced Palestinians.
All right, go ahead.
Mr. President, you were saying that Palestinians will live somewhere else safe. Where exactly do you want them to live?
Well, it's not where I want them to live. It's going to be where we ultimately choose as a group. And I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Jordan. I believe we'll have a parcel of land in Egypt. We may have someplace else, but I think when we finish our talks, we'll have a place where they're going to live very happily and very safely.
Speaking to reporters in the Oval Office alongside Ademar King Abdullah, President Trump claimed his plan would create jobs across the devastated Gaza Strip.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace, and there's not going to be any problem, and nobody's going to question it, and we're going to run it very properly, and eventually we'll have economic development at a very large scale, maybe the largest scale on that site, and we'll have lots of good things built there, including hotels and office buildings and housing and other things.
And Mr. President, take it under what authority? It is sovereign territory.
Under the U.S. authority.
Meanwhile, Jordan's king, who mostly sat silent, continued to avoid supporting the president's stance. Jordan, which has previously rejected Trump's idea as a breach of international law, said his country would take in 2,000 sick Palestinian children. Now, notably, Jordan already has 2 million Palestinian refugees and its population of 11 million.
King Abdullah, what do you think about the U.S. taking over the Gaza Strip? Do you want to see the U.S. own the Gaza Strip?
Well, I think, as I said earlier, the president is looking at Egypt coming to present their plan. As I said, we will be in Saudi Arabia to discuss how we can work with the president and with the United States. So I think let's wait until the Egyptians can come and present to the president and not get ahead of ourselves.
And is there a parcel of land in Jordan that you're willing to have Palestinians?
Well, I think what we said, I have to look at the best interests of my country. I think the president is very happy that we do this thing with 2,000 children as quickly as possible.
President Trump, however, appeared to be unmoved as he reiterated his expectation of Jordan and Egypt resettling millions of Palestinians.
No, I think we'll do something. I don't have to threaten with money. We contribute a lot of money to Jordan and to Egypt, by the way, a lot, to both. But I don't have to threaten that. I think we're above that. I do believe we're above that.
President Trump's exchange with Jordan's King Abdullah comes a week after he triggered global condemnation by unveiling his Gaza takeover plan. And Egypt has roundly rejected the idea of resettling Palestinians, and other Arab nations largely align with this position. Meanwhile, Jordan has been sandwiched between President Trump's pause of billions of dollars of aid and the sensitivity about Palestinians' right to return to Gaza. And staying in the United States, a bizarre bill has been introduced in Congress to allow the United States to acquire Greenland and rename it Red, White, and Blueland. The bill was presented by Republican lawmaker Earl Buddy Carter from Georgia, and it seeks to authorize President Donald Trump to buy the autonomous Danish territory. Now announcing the bill, Carter said he wants his negotiator-in-chief to ink the monumental deal with the world's largest island.
America is back and will soon be bigger than ever with the addition of Red, White, and Blueland. President Trump has correctly identified the purchase of what is now Greenland as a national security priority, and we will proudly welcome its people to join the freest nation to ever exist when our negotiator-in-chief inks this monumental deal.
Now, the bill will not only allow Greenland's purchase, but also require the federal government to rename it on official maps and documents. Meanwhile, Denmark's politicians have criticized the bill, calling it absurd and out of touch with reality.
There is clearly a need for more adults in the room when the U.S. administration formulates foreign policy. If these people can't see how absurd they appear, they are out of touch with reality. Greenland is not for sale. And the only thing the U.S. achieves with this behavior is alienating one of its most loyal and reliable allies in Europe. The U.S. doesn't grow stronger by losing such an ally, only weaker and more irrelevant to the world.
And it's not just politicians, but citizens in Denmark are also clapping back at President Trump's idea with their own twist. More than 200,000 Danes have signed a satirical petition to buy California, America's most prosperous state. And the petition that aims to crowdfund $1 trillion for the purchase features the perks of acquiring the U.S. state with the slogan, "Make California Great Again." The mockery website also says President Trump isn't California's biggest fan, as he regularly feuds with its governor, Gavin Newsom. Now, Donald Trump began floating the idea of acquiring Greenland during his first term and has been fixated on it since his re-election.
We need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
Now, both Greenland and Denmark's leaders have repeatedly rejected President Trump's proposal, saying the mineral-rich territory is not up for sale. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Vice President J.D. Vance and his family during the AI Action Summit in Paris. This was Prime Minister Modi's first meeting with the new Trump administration, and as Modi congratulated Vance on his election victory and later joined his family to celebrate their son Vivek's birthday. Amid the celebrations, the two leaders also discussed key issues, including India's interest in U.S. nuclear technology. Still, as the Indian leader prepares to visit Washington, it remains to be seen how President Trump and Prime Minister Modi will strengthen the India-U.S. partnership. Our next report has more.
Paris, the city of lights, had another reason to shine this week. The AI Action Summit, co-chaired by Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and French President Emmanuel Macron, brought together world leaders to shape the future of artificial intelligence. But amidst the discussion on technology, a different kind of connection was unfolding, one of warmth, friendship and celebration. On Monday evening, inside the grand halls of the Élysée Palace, Prime Minister Modi met US Vice President J.D. Vance for the first time since the new Trump administration took office. And as cameras flashed, Prime Minister Modi extended his hand with a broad smile. "Congratulations, great victory," he said. It was a moment of camaraderie, a symbol of the strong ties between India and the United States.
coming. Somebody wants to.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. So nice to see you.
Great victory.
Yes. Yes.
But the real magic happened the next day. In a setting far from the usual diplomatic formalities, Prime Minister Modi met Vance again, this time with his wife Usha and their young sons Ewan and Vivek. It wasn't just a political meeting, it was a family gathering. And as fate would have it, it was also Vance's son Vivek's birthday. With the ease of a leader who connects effortlessly, Prime Minister Modi joined in the little boy's celebrations. The US Vice President later took to social media, calling the Indian leader gracious and kind, and sharing how much his children loved the thoughtful presence. Even Prime Minister Modi, alongside a few heartwarming pictures, took to X and wrote, "Had a wonderful meeting with US VP JD Vance and his family. Delighted to join them in celebrating the joyous birthday of their son Vivek." This wasn't just diplomacy, it was a moment of genuine connection. However, behind the warmth of personal interactions, serious discussions were taking place. With Usha Vance in attendance, Prime Minister Modi and JD Vance spoke about India's interest in diversifying its energy resources. And the White House later confirmed that the Indian leader expressed keen interest in US nuclear technology, a step towards strengthening India's energy security. As the AI summit ended, Prime Minister Modi, in a defining statement, confirmed India would be happy to host the next AI summit. It was more than an invitation. It was a testament to India's rising leadership in the digital world.
भारत और फ्रांस के इंडस्ट्री लीडर्स, आप सबको नमस्कार, बॉन्जूर। इस रूम में मैं एक अद्भुत ऊर्जा, उत्साह और डायनेमिज्म को महसूस कर रहा हूं। ये केवल एक सामान्य बिजनेस इवेंट नहीं है, कनेक्शंस नहीं बना रहे हैं। आप सब भारत फ्रांस स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप को भी मजबूती दे रहे हैं। मैं आप सबको कहता हूं कि भारत में आने का यही समय है, सही समय है। भारत की प्रगति में सभी की प्रगति जुड़ी है। मैं आप सभी को भारत की विकास यात्रा से जुड़ने के लिए आमंत्रित करता हूं। जब फ्रांस की फिनेस और भारत का स्केल मिलेगा, जब भारत का पेस और फ्रांस का प्रिसिजन मिलेगा, जब फ्रांस की टेक्नोलॉजी और भारत का टैलेंट मिलेगा, तो सिर्फ बिजनेस लैंडस्केप ही नहीं, ग्लोबल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन होगा। एक बार फिर अपना कीमती समय निकालकर यहां आने के लिए आप सभी का बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करता हूं।
And now, as Prime Minister Modi prepares to head to Washington for his much anticipated meeting with President Donald Trump, the stage is set for yet another historic conversation. The agenda is packed: trade, defense, technology and global security. But if Paris was any indication, Prime Minister Modi showed that diplomacy isn't just about handshakes and official statements. Sometimes it's about partnerships, personal connections, and shared dreams of making both nations stronger.
And corporate America is shedding its diversity promises faster than you can say DEI. From Wall Street boardrooms to Silicon Valley campuses, companies are scrambling to align with President Donald Trump's anti-diversity crusade. The policies, which were once celebrated as steps toward inclusion, are vanishing overnight, replaced by silence or compliance. Goldman Sachs, Deloitte, Google, Meta, Amazon, the list keeps growing and the message is clear. Diversity is out. But as companies bow to political pressure, what does this mean for the future of workplace equality? Our next story has more.
Donald Trump isn't in the boardroom, but you would be forgiven for thinking otherwise. From Wall Street to Silicon Valley, corporate giants are scrambling to rewrite policies and sidestep diversity efforts, all in a bid to stay in the president's good graces. First up, Goldman Sachs and Deloitte. These aren't small players. These are the titans of banking and consulting, and even they are retreating under the weight of Trump's anti-DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion offensive. Remember Goldman's bold 2020 pledge? The bank swore it wouldn't take a company public unless it had at least one diverse board member. But 5 years later, in 2025, this is history. Blaming a court decision that struck down Nasdaq's diversity disclosure rules, Goldman has quietly pulled the plug.
As a result of legal developments related to board diversity requirements, we ended our formal board diversity policy. We continue to believe that successful boards benefit from diverse backgrounds and perspectives, and we will encourage them to take this approach.
On the other hand, Deloitte followed with a stealthier yet equally dramatic shift. The consultancy giant ordered at least 15,000 staff working on government contracts to scrub pronouns from their email signatures by February 7.
This week, I will also end the government policy of trying to socially engineer race and gender into every aspect of public and private life. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
But here's where it gets darker. Trump's executive orders now demand that federal employees report colleagues who continue DEI efforts in disguise, and failure to do so expect adverse consequences. While private companies aren't legally bound by these orders, Trump has nudged the US Attorney General to find ways to make them stick in the private sector too.
We want the most competent people. We don't care what race they are. We want the most competent people, especially in those positions. And you're talking about extremely complex things. And if they don't have a great brain, a great power of the brain, they're not going to be very good at what they do, and bad things will happen.
And the ripple effect is growing. ISS, the influential shareholder advisory firm, announced it will no longer recommend voting against US companies that lack gender or ethnic diversity on their boards, meaning we don't want to upset the Trump camp.
In light of these developments, ISS will indefinitely halt consideration of certain diversity factors in making vote recommendations, and will no longer consider the gender and racial and/or ethnic diversity of a company's board when making vote recommendations with respect to the election or re-election of directors at U.S. companies.
But this isn't just a Wall Street story. The tech world, those same companies that once championed inclusion, is quietly falling in line. Google, for instance, has been busy. After donating $1 million to Trump's 2025 inauguration, the tech giant began dismantling its diversity hiring goals. But the changes didn't stop at HR. Google Maps recently renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America for US users, following one of Trump's first executive orders.
For the first time in history, flying over the recently renamed Gulf of America. Please enjoy the flight, and we are now about to head westbound to Super Bowl 59.
While Mexican users still see Gulf of Mexico, the rest of the world gets a compromise label: Gulf of Mexico, and in brackets, Gulf of America. Google Calendar has also taken a hit. Users noticed that cultural observances like Pride Month, Black History Month, and Indigenous Peoples Month vanished from the default settings. Google claims this was a scalability issue, saying it now differs to public holiday databases like timeanddate.com.
Some years ago, the calendar team started manually adding a broader set of cultural moments in a wide number of countries around the world. We got feedback that some other events and countries were missing, and maintaining hundreds of moments manually and consistently globally wasn't scalable or sustainable. So in mid-2024, we returned to showing only public holidays and national observances from timeanddate.com globally.
But users aren't buying it. Dear Google, stop sucking up to Trump, one person wrote on a support forum, and that sentiment is spreading. Meanwhile, Meta and Amazon are pulling back too. Meta scrapped DEI programs tied to hiring, training, and supplier selection. And Amazon, in a memo to employees, announced it was winding down outdated representation and inclusion programs. Though it's a coordinated retreat, the message is loud and clear. DEI is out. Corporate compliance with Trump's anti-diversity agenda is in. But as more companies bow to the pressure, one can't help but wonder what's next, and how far will they go? The answer might be just around the corner, but one thing is for sure, this isn't the end. It's just the beginning.
And today we end in Ukraine, where President Volodymyr Zelensky gave an interview with British media house The Guardian, where he stressed NATO's role in the region. President Zelensky said Ukraine's security guarantee would be incomplete without the United States. And he further added that the Trump administration should meet Ukrainian officials before a meeting between President Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin is finalized. Now, the White House and the Kremlin have been holding discussions on when the two leaders could possibly meet. And with the interaction expected soon, President Zelensky has offered a resolution to the conflict, which includes a land swap deal.
We will swap one territory for another. I don't know, we will see. But all our territories are important. There is no priority.
President Zelensky has offered to exchange the territory his troops hold in Russia's Kursk region in exchange for Ukrainian territory that has been captured by Russian forces since the war first began back in 2022. On Monday, President Donald Trump spoke to Fox News where he said Ukraine could someday be Russian, a sentiment that was received well in Moscow but sparked fury in Kyiv. President Trump also stressed striking a rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine as part of the truce agreement.
You talk with Zelensky this week, sir?
Yeah, probably.
By telephone, what's your
He
message?
wants to make a deal. Let's see. We'll see. We're dealing with him, and I think they both want to make a deal, but we'll have to see. It's got to be done.
What is Zelensky?
Would have never happened if I were president. This would never have happened. Millions of people are dead.
Kellogg going to Ukraine this week, sir, soon?
Yeah, he is. Keith Kellogg. General Kellogg is an excellent guy, and he's spending time doing various things. We have numerous people working on numerous different problems. You know, when I left office, wasn't long ago, a little more than 4 years ago, we had no wars, we didn't have problems. Now we got the whole world is blowing up, but we'll put out the fire.
In addition, Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth said he is against deploying U.S. troops to Ukraine whether a ceasefire is achieved or not.
The European continent deserves to be free from any aggression, but it ought to be those in the neighborhood investing the most in that collective, individual and collective defense. That's common sense, as the president talks a lot about. Common sense is you defend your neighborhood and the Americans will come alongside you in helping in that defense. If and when that happens, and I believe it will, because of President Trump, most NATO countries are already close to 2%. We believe that needs to be higher. The president has said 5%. I think he's right.
Now, President Zelensky's land swap offer is a monumental shift in Kyiv's stance on territorial concessions. However, it is well known that Ukraine ceding territory to Putin has long been a part of President Donald Trump's plan, who often claimed that he would end the war on day one of taking office. Now, despite the flurry of talks and concessions, the roadmap to an eventual peace agreement remains murky and elusive. What is clear, if Donald Trump is the master negotiator he's always touted, those skills and more will sorely be needed to find an end to the nearly 4-year war. That's First Post America for this Wednesday. I'm Eric Ham signing off from our studios in Washington, D.C. Thanks everyone for tuning in.